Hello everybody. In this video, we're going to be talking about an important concept in attacking chess, which is mating patterns and general tactical awareness. We're going to see a couple of examples of mating patterns in practice. We're going to talk about what we can use them for, and we'll talk about how to get better at them. So we have our first position here, and in this first position, we have material equality, but white has a really good opportunity. And if you've seen any sorts of mating patterns before, you will actually see this answer pretty quickly. And the way to see this answer is to actually notice that black's king is really boxed in by its pawns. And so we have a really good chance here to go for mate. We can deliver our mate with the queen, check, rook captures queen, rook captures rook, rook captures rook, rook captures rook, check. Okay, so if you've seen back rank mate, this idea would not be very new or anything. But what I want to highlight in this example is that if we're not familiar with the idea of back rank mate, we probably wouldn't see it at this point. Because the first move is really not an intuitive move. Like we're putting our queen onto a square that it just can get captured by a rook. So the idea of a mating pattern is that we want to look at a specific position and be able to try to map it to some other positions in our minds. And there's only a finite set of patterns that lead to checkmate. Chess is a very, very broad game, and sometimes you'll see exceptions, of course, but most positions can kind of fit into one style or another. We're talking about, like, let's say dozens or hundred of these sorts of patterns. We're not talking about like millions or billions or any totally unreasonable amount. So if you saw this position and you've never seen the idea of a back rank mate before, you might think, okay, well, I can put the king in check. I'll move my queen to e8. Oh, that doesn't look very safe. Okay, I'm going to stop. Because usually if you kept searching after that, it probably doesn't lead to anywhere. It just happens this is a specific position. So what we want is to be able to look at these sorts of positions and really quickly get that, wait, there's an idea. Okay, so let's have a more sophisticated example. If you've never seen this example before, I strongly recommend pausing the video because you'll get way more satisfaction out of solving it yourself than from me revealing the answer. So in this position, we have what looks like an approximately equal position. Actually, I guess we could say that black's pieces are very passive. That's also a cue for us because they're all kind of off in the corner here, not really doing very much, whereas our pieces are really nicely all centralized in nice places. And here white has a really good opportunity. White can start by moving their queen with check. Then king has two choices. King can move to f8, king can move to h8. If the king moves to f8, then we immediately deliver checkmate, so that's not a real option. So king goes to h8. We throw our knight onto f7, check. Only one legal move. King goes to g8. Now we make a double check with our knight, discovery from the queen, also the check from the knight. Again, the king has only two moves. If the king goes to f8, then we just deliver checkmate. If the king goes to h8, this is where the key thing comes, that we can actually deliver this move, queen g8. Looks like a little bit of a wild move. Queen just gets captured, and now we have knight f7, checkmate. And this is the so-called smother mate because black's king is completely surrounded and trapped by its own pieces. Now, when I say we want to be able to see these ideas quickly, if we go back to the original position, it looks like maybe white's in a little bit of trouble. Black's queen is attacking our knight. Black's knight is attacking our queen. We might be forced to try to defend things. And if we were seeing this position from a few moves out in a game, and we're not aware that there's this idea of a smother mate, we're never going to be able to see this far ahead because the moves are so unintuitive to make. Like, why would I put my queen onto g8? That makes no sense. The rook will just take it. So what we want is to be very familiar with these patterns and these ideas so that when we see this sort of position, we actually realize, wait, actually there might be something here. I'm going to dig a little bit deeper and see if this is a thing or not. one more example. So here we have another position, approximately equal material. Again, white has a really good chance that they can actually sacrifice their queen. Queen takes h7, check. Only legal move is to take it back. We move our rook over to h3, check. King moves to g8, and then we deliver checkmate with our rook. So this is also a mating pattern. And again, not the most intuitive one if you've never seen it before. So what we really want is we want to be able to get to the point, and we'll talk in a couple minutes about how we can get to this point. We want to get to the point that we can see this sort of idea quite quickly. We still will have to check that the idea works. So we're not going to immediately blitz out the move. It's not bullet chess, but we're wanting that we can see that, okay, maybe there's a possibility that I have this queen takes h7 sacrifice. With some cues in this particular position being that we have our bishop pointing along this diagonal, our rook can activate, so we have a lot of pieces in this vicinity. Now where I say check that things work, okay, here we have very slightly different position. I've moved the bishop from e7 to d7. And actually now this whole thing doesn't work. So we want to be able to see that, okay, I might have an idea because I have this bishop pointing this way. I have my queen pointing to h7. My rook is also in the area. I can even bring the other rook if I want. We want to see the idea fast and then spend our time checking, is there a flaw in this idea? So this is a 3-move sequence. Does something fail at some point? And actually at this point, the problem we have is that the bishop is covering the square of the rook, and so this thing doesn't work. Similar idea happens in this position. Same kind of setup. If we try to do the same thing, what's the flaw in this position? Well, move our rook here, check. Instead of moving the king back, black makes a non-intuitive move. We have to remember we sacrificed a whole queen to get to this position. And so black is able to make a move that normally would be a bad move of putting their queen in a position that it could be captured by a rook. But in this case, it works because they're up by so much material from our initial sacrifice. So just to reiterate a little bit, what we're wanting to do is get to the point that we see the idea or the possibility of some sort of mating pattern in a pretty quick fashion. We want to do that fast because normally we're not going to actually reach this position necessarily. We're going to be looking at this position from a few moves ahead. And so we want that instead of looking at this position and having to think, if I do this, then they do this, then I do this, then they do this, then I do this, and so on, we want to actually see quite quickly, almost as one move, that this sequence of 3 or 4 moves will work or at least be a possibility. Then we can take our time to actually check, okay, those 3 or 4 moves that I've lumped together, are they actually lumped together, or is there some sort of flaw that will stop them from being lumped together, such as the queen coming in between pieces, or the bishop capturing the second checking piece? Okay, so that's what a mating pattern is. That's why they're useful. How do we get better at them? Main thing is really practice. Practice doing puzzles in particular. What you want is to be able to do lots and lots of puzzles. The more times you see these, that will imprint the idea on your in your mental model. And after you've seen them enough times, you'll see them really quickly. A suggestion that I read from a writer and instructor, Jakob Agard, is to do puzzles on easy mode. So do easy puzzles. Don't do very hard puzzles. Not to say you should never do a hard puzzle, because sometimes we do want to push ourselves. But the idea of doing easy puzzles is that you're going to get a lot more exposure to puzzles because you'll see way more puzzles than you would if you were doing them on a normal mode. So you want to be doing puzzles. Let's say you have a half hour a day that you're spending on puzzles. You want to be able to do 15 or 20 or 30 puzzles in a day. This is the way to actually get it so that you're really imprinting something on your mind. So I will post a couple of links in the comments about ways that I have improved and am still practicing doing these patterns and doing puzzles. So a couple of resources for that, because this is really an ongoing thing. You're never going to be like, okay, I got mating patterns, I'm done with that. As you get better at chess, you'll see that there are more mating patterns and more longer sequences that you can try to lump together in this way. But this is the idea. So that's all for now. Thank you for watching.